Good afternoon. This is Lindsay. It's September 25th, 2023. It's Monday. And I'm going to go ahead and do a video today about narcissists and how they gaslight, okay? And in this particular situation, I'm talking about various individuals, but I'm going to talk right now about my mom, who has been gaslighting me a lot lately, and I talk about this because people are not very well informed about what narcissistic abuse is, especially when it's being perpetrated by your own parents or your mother, for example. But it's something that I'm so used to and familiar with that's why I kind of dedicate my channel now to, more about narcissistic abuse as well as targeted individual stuff. But so let me talk about my mom, how she's been doing this gaslighting stuff lately, okay? And it's like, maybe this is educational for some people, maybe it'll help some people, I don't know, but basically, in order to really understand narcissistic abuse, I think you have had to have gone through it yourself, to really understand what it's about. It's something that's so weird to try to explain to people, but unless you've experienced it, it's kind of almost impossible to know what it is, and most people don't really understand it until they've really experienced it, okay? And it's the most horrendous type of psychological manipulative abuse that anybody could go through, and I don't know how else to explain it except like that, okay? So as I've talked about before in some of my other videos, like I went through this thing where a grieving period, basically, because my uncle died, and I'm pretty sure that the man is my biological father. I'm still convinced, even though I don't have 100% proof that he's my biological father, I'm almost 100% sure that he is my biological father. And this is a picture of him over here, this man right here. No, the other one, I'm sorry. The one with the one that my finger's pointing to. That's my father, my biological father. Who I grew up thinking was my uncle, right? My Uncle Alan. No, I'm almost 100% sure that this man, Alan Carter Baldwin, is my biological father. And I have my reasons as to why I think that. We just had another hearing, this court hearing. It was on September 14th for probate here in Kerrville, Texas. And that whole thing was so strange because basically it was a status hearing, okay? And which meant that they were basically trying to just a status hearing to find out what was going on with everything, and if my brother was behaving properly as the dependent administrator of the estate. Which I tell you, probate stuff is really crazy. Whenever you, like with me, since I didn't have an attorney, now I do. Now I have an attorney, thank God. The attorney ad litem is actually representing me now as my attorney, and I really needed an attorney, and thank God I have one, because there's been so many lies, like little lies throughout this whole thing that I've caught on to quite easily, and so it's a good thing I have an attorney now, because I didn't even, at the hearing, I didn't even bother to tell the judge about, like, for example, let me tell you, for an example of probate, what probate's about. Okay, they were trying to do, my mom and brother are trying to do a guardianship on me, a management guardianship over my share of the inheritance of the estate of my father. I'm going to call of Uncle Alan, my father, Alan Baldwin, okay? So they're trying to declare me incapacitated. They're trying to declare me as being incapacitated at the hearing, and do a guardianship, management guardianship. And I want to read what what they had written, well, I don't have it. I don't have a printout of what they were. I don't think I do. But basically, so they're trying to declare me as incapacitated, trying to do a management guardianship on me, which I don't think I have a copy of that application that's been filed in the Kerr County probate court. But so I objected to it. I objected to that, and I had to represent myself pro se. Oh, here, I do have a copy of what it is. It's a application for creation of management trust for alleged incapacitated person without a guardian. Okay, that's what and I didn't find out about this until the very last minute. Like, okay, basically they had all this in the works months ago. And that's what is typical of narcissistic abuse, is that they will plan stuff out and then at the last minute hit you with it so that you're not prepared. And so that's what happened to me. Is I found out literally like 2 days before this last hearing on September 14th, or 3 days, something like that, that this is what this is what was going on. Okay, and I had already inquired several months ago about this because of one of the emails that I had gotten from the deputy sheriff, whatever, Denise Vella, looked suspicious, and it said something about a guardianship. And I said, well, wait a minute, has somebody filed an application for a guardianship over me? And I asked her that, and she said no. And same with the other attorney. I asked the attorney ad litem the same thing, and they said no, nobody's filed an application for a guardianship over you. Yet I find out 3 days before the hearing that in fact that's what they were trying to do. Okay, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. So what I did, since I'm representing myself pro se, I had to I had to go online, and I filled out a form and paid $35 to do this, basically. An affidavit saying that, and this is the affidavit that I did on just so you people see what I'm talking about. This is an affidavit, and it says, okay, I was objecting to this. I was objecting to this thing right here, this application for management trust of alleged incapacitated person without guardian, okay? I was objecting to that, so I did my due diligence and got this notarized. This is notarized. Well, the original one is notarized, which I sent to, and I've got copies of the notarized one. So I sent that to the court, or to my attorney lady. And so basically I'm objecting to that. They were trying to put a guardianship on me, which is ridiculous. Okay, you go figure, so that they can control me and try to control my money, just like my mom tried to do when I don't have the copy of the notarized one. That's the attorney has that, I guess. But yeah, I sent that to her, and I don't know where my photocopy is of the notarized one, but nonetheless, oh, maybe this is it. Anyway, yeah, I got it notarized, okay, and signed it, so that I don't, so I was objecting to this thing, the application for creation of the management. So they were trying to, and they kept calling me Lindsey Brown, like throughout this whole document. I was referred to as, let me see, I'm just going to read part of this, and this is once again for probate court, okay? For those of you who have not gone through probate before, it can be, like I said, especially when they're trying to make you look crazy so that they can control your money, okay? So, I'm going to read a little bit of this. To the honorable judge of said court, this is, okay. The following applicant, Carter Baldwin, my brother, furnishes the following, I think I need my reading glasses. I might need to go get my glasses. Hold on. Yeah, I need my reading glasses because this is a little bit dark in here. Fuck, I can talk about so much gang stalking shit that's going on as well. This so blatantly harassment smear campaign crap that they're doing to me to humiliate and embarrass me and exploit me. It's horrible, horrible, horrible shit that I go through, and nobody believes me, obviously, unless you know what targeted individual stuff is all about. It's very horrendous what these people do to a targeted person. Really awful stuff. But anyway, so I'm reading this. I'm going to continue reading because this is educational for some people, because you never know when you're going to have to go through something similar to this, when there's a person who dies without a will, or whenever you don't know who your biological father is or mother, and that person may be your biological parent, and there's a sibling involved, and the person didn't have a will. It gets really fucking messy, and pardon my language, but this whole probate stuff was so horrible. Before this hearing, it was so horrible what I was going through with all the abuses, all the abusive messages that Carter had been sending me, as well as my mother, and I have them all archived, all of them, just in case I need them. But I was being severely abused, psychologically, horrible abuse. It caused me so much trauma and anxiety and depression. And they knew what they were doing. That's what these people do to try to entrap you, make you feel confused, make you feel under their control, and overwhelm you. And that's typical of what narcissistic people do to their victims. And I don't like to consider myself a victim. I see myself as a survivor of this shit because I've been going through it for so long. But it's like the aftermath of narcissistic abuse syndrome just lingers and lingers, and it never really goes away because you're permanently fucking traumatized and brain damaged from all the fucking abuse that you've endured from these kinds of people. Okay, it never quite leaves you. It's something that you stay with for the rest of your life if you're not dead from it already. So let me continue with what I was going to read about this case, about what they did. And this was from the hearing on September 14th. So Carter Baldwin furnishes the following information to the court pursuant to 1301.054 Texas State Code in the files. This application for the creation of a management trust and would show the court, okay, number one, Carter Baldwin is a dependent administrator of the decedent's estate only because he barely was able to get that. I swear to God, he shouldn't have been anything after all the abuses that he did. And the fiduciary manager of the assets for himself and his sister, Lindsay, in quotations, Baldwin. Look at that, Lindsay Baldwin Hill. That my name is Lindsay Hill Baldwin. They did that on purpose, just a fucking gaslight, okay? Also an heir, an alleged incapacitated person being the heirs of this estate. An administration is pending upon decedent's estate in the above entitled and numbered cause, and is in the best interest of the estate for the court to safeguard the inherited assets of Lindsay Baldwin Hill. Once again, in quotations, Baldwin. You see the little errors that are blatant errors on purpose? The court has jurisdiction and venue is proper because this is a court in which a proceeding administering a decedent's estate was most recently pending, and Lindsay Baldwin Brown as an heir. Now they call me Lindsay Baldwin Brown. Look at that. Okay, now my name is Lindsay Baldwin Brown. First it was Lindsay Baldwin Hill, now it's Lindsay Baldwin Brown. Just to fucking insult and humiliate me or try to trigger me, whatever, gaslight. Applicant, as an interested party, claims to be the owner of part of decedent's estate. The last 3 digits, and what the fuck is that about? Usually it's the last 4 digits of a person's social security, but it's the last 3 digits of the social security number of Carter Baldwin, or 167. The last 3 digits of the driver's license number of Carter Baldwin, or 627. What the fuck does that matter? That has nothing to do with anything. Nothing. That's completely insignificant to this case. Um, Lindsey Baldwin Brown, and then it just says Lindsey Baldwin Brown. They did so many typos in this shit. The names of residences of all the decedent's heirs, the relationship of each heir to decedent, and the true interests of the applicant of each of the heirs in the estate of decedent are as follows. Name, Carter Baldwin, an adult. Address, 1240 Peck Drive, Los Angeles, California, 90035. Relationship, nephew. Okay. Share of real property, 50%. Share of personal property, 50%. And then B, Lindsay. Name, Lindsey Baldwin, an adult. Oh, now they call me Lindsey Baldwin. Isn't that interesting? And address 1135 Denver Boulevard, San Antonio, 78210. Relationship, niece. No, I'm his fucking daughter. I'm pretty sure, but they're never, obviously narcissistic Kenny Baldwin is never gonna fucking admit to that because of her shame and guilt, but he's my father. This man is my father, okay? Alan Carter Baldwin, born April 18th, 1946, and I'm not sure where he was born. This man is my biological father. I'm almost 100% sure of that. I'm almost 100% sure that he is my father. At the time of the decedent's death, decedent owned real property in the state of Texas and personal property as follows. Okay, the description, and it's the address, 6.28 acres, survey, value $99,000. Description, lot 7, block 1 of Meadows of River Hill, Kerr County, Texas, a subdivision in Kerrville, value $26,000. Now, that's not the latest appraisal, okay? But this is what was a county appraisal. It's right now. Apparently, they're doing another appraisal of the land of the property because it's worth a lot more than that. And then personal property, household furnishings and personal property valued at $200. Which, how do we know that? Considering that Carter Baldwin, how do we know it was really there? Considering he accessed the entire property of my uncle, of my father, Alan Baldwin, way before the first hearing, way before he was ever administered any kind of independent, dependent administrator of anything. He accessed the property and cleared out everything. And that's what makes me so fucking mad, is that he cleared out the property. God knows what kinds of documents he found. And he did that way before he was administered anything, way before there was ever a court hearing. And he tried to get me to go with him. And when I said no, that's what escalated all the fighting and all the abusive messages that he was sending me for 5 months straight, which I basically ignored. But see, why and how was he able to access my uncle's estate? I'll call him my uncle, my father, whatever. Why and how was he able to do that prior to any kind of a court hearing? Answer that. How come they can't answer my question? Because apparently that's illegal in Texas. That is completely against probate law. How was he able to do that? So then there's like the personal property, household furnishings, $200. A 2001 Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck, $1,500. A 1997 Honda Accord, not running in rough condition, and they say that that's worth $500. Okay, just sitting there on the property. And all my paintings, by the way, Alan, because I painted a lot back in the day, and so I'm part of this shit is they're smearing me and humiliating me and shaming me because I don't, they take advantage of people like me. Okay, all of my paintings, when that hurricane, whatever the fuck, Katrina or Rita, whatever, which one it was, it hit New Orleans really bad. It hit Houston and it hit New Orleans around 2000, I want to say 2004, 2003, whatever that one, I think it was Hurricane Katrina. During that time, my uncle, Alan Baldwin, my father, was trying to get me. he was telling me to leave Houston because it was going to flood so bad. And so I ended up going there and taking all my paintings, and he put all my paintings in storage for me. I met him somewhere, I remember. He kept all of my paintings in storage because he was so determined for me to get out of Houston because he was afraid that I was going to get flooded and whatnot. So I drove all my paintings there and met him someplace. I remember that, and I ran out of gas on the freeway, and I was stranded. And so all of my paintings, there's a bunch of them in his storage shed. I was able to get some of them out at this last hearing when I was there in Kerrville because Carter had a key to the property and all that, so I got to see the shed where my uncle had stored a lot of my paintings. And also, this was in there, this thing, because this was from the Aspen Bar and Grill that he had, and this was an old menu that they had. So, I mean, whatever, that was in the shed, I took that. But a lot of my paintings are still there, which I don't have access to because I don't have any fucking access to the property, obviously. I don't have a key to get in, but I'm going to eventually need to get my paintings, all of them, so that I can either sell them or do whatever I want with them because they're mine. So anyway, they basically, to make a long story short, in the hearing, the judge did not think that I was incapacitated. My mother tried to argue that I was, and my attorney asked a simple question. She said, "So has Lindsay by law ever been committed to a mental hospital?" And the answer was no, okay? By law, no. I had never been committed to a mental hospital. So that got Kenny really mad during basically, they're, like I said, they don't have any grounds or any reason as to put a guardianship on me. No evidence whatsoever as to why they can do that to me. And so it was fucking humiliating. Once again, I was being fucking humiliated in the court. But I was being nice and cordial and professional and trying to whatever. But it's so fucking stupid when people are trying to control your money or assets when it's about greed and shit like lies, which is all this is all about, a bunch of fucking lies and greed on behalf of Kenny and Carter, who have gotten away with a lot already, and they're still trying to fucking belittle me and traumatize me and treat me like I'm crazy, which I'm not. I'm angry. I was fighting back, but I'm not crazy. And they totally took advantage of me, or tried to. And so I objected to all this shit about the guardianship and about what they're trying to do, the management guardianship and all that. I objected to it by doing my own affidavit, which I did not even get to show the judge in the court, but I did present it to my attorney. I faxed it to her a day before the hearing. One day before the court hearing, I faxed her my affidavit objecting to the guardianship trust, management trust. And so I'm going to read what I wrote. My affidavit says, I, Lindsay Hill Baldwin of San Antonio in Bexar County, Texas, make oath and say that I object to the application for creation of management trust for alleged incapacitated person without guardian. I am not incapacitated. This is an outright lie and psychological abuse of my person. In other words, legally speaking, that's abuse. That's abuse. I was objecting to that, saying that it's abusive towards me. And then number two, see, you can see all this written down. And then I said number two, Carter A. Baldwin and Kenny Griffith Baldwin are narcissistic individuals whose intentions are to destroy me mentally, emotionally, and financially with their lies, greed, and gaslighting. And that's a fact. That's a fact. There is nothing to back up their claim of my being incapacitated psychologically. This is being perpetrated out of spite and envy and the fact that I am not conforming to their desires. I am my own person who can and will choose how I live my life. And that's it. That was simple. That's all I said. I got it. And then State of Texas, County of Bexar, subscribed and sworn before me, and I had it notarized, and I sent it off one day before the hearing, because I didn't get this information I only got that information 3 days before the hearing, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, being that I'm my attorney had to represent myself pro se. But I did have help with the attorney ad litem, thank God, because they are trying to fucking make a fucking fool out of me and steal my fucking money, steal my inheritance, get me locked up in some mental institution or whatever the fuck it is, and it's not gonna work. It didn't work. Much to Kenny's dismay, much to Carter's dismay, it didn't work, and it's not gonna work. And I'm tired of being treated like I'm stupid or crazy just because I'm different or creative or whatever the fuck excuse they come up with to do this to people. Okay, and my mother, to do her little my mother loves to gaslight me and shame me and humiliate me in every way possible. So, an example of what she did recently is that this is what she did, and this is fucking humiliating. But she's my mother. But this is an example of their fucking psychological abuse. Okay, my mother's never gonna stop doing this till the day she dies. Okay, I'm gonna always be her little victim of fucking exploitation and abuse, and it's never gonna stop. And it actually gets worse as they get older. But I'm trying to be cordial with this person and nice, but it's so fucking insulting what she does. But she sent me the other day a photo of her and Ben Baldwin. They're a photo. She sent it to scanned it. This is them at their wedding. Okay, she's wearing a wedding dress and he's wearing obviously a suit. You can't really see it. The glare is really bad, but nonetheless, she sent me a photo of that. That's my father, my alleged father, Ben Baldwin. Like I said, I don't think he's my fucking biological father. I think but anyway, there's a picture that she sent me of them. It's like, why are you doing that? What's the point of you doing this, Kenny? Sending me a picture of my supposed father, Ben Baldwin, who's not my biological father, and you married at the chapel in the wedding at the church. Okay, why did they do that? Why did she do that? And then she sends me a picture of. It's not that I don't want to see the photos. It's just that why now? Why is she doing all that shit now? You see, all the synchronicities and timing of how narcissistic people do these things. And so then she sends me a picture of Alan there, my father Alan over there on my left-hand side, and then Ben, my alleged father Ben, and basically Alan is pointing to a watch in this picture. He's pointing to Ben's watch for whatever reason. He's like pointing to his wrist watch. And I don't know what that's about, but he's pointing to the watch. Maybe you can see that more. But these two were brothers, and Alan's my father. Ben looks like Carter. I admit that in this picture, he kind of looks a little bit like Carter somewhat, but it's iffy. And I look a lot like Alan. It's pretty obvious that Alan's my father. I totally look like Alan, 100%. You can tell that man is my father. Look at that. Look at the resemblance. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious. To me, at least. It's obvious. And Ben is a little bit older. Ben was born in 1945. And he's a Capricorn. He was born January 16th, 1945, and in Carmel, California. And he was born on a military base because Pops, my grandfather, Ben Baldwin Sr., Ben Armistead Baldwin Sr., was in the Army. And he was stationed in Carmel, California at the time. And so Ben was born in Carmel, California. But so it's just weird. And she says, from the archives, Trinity Church downtown. We looked terrified when she's showing the wedding picture. So they got married at a church, a Trinity Church downtown. I think that's an Episcopalian church because I've been there before in Houston. Yeah, I grew up Episcopalian, going to church all the time and all that. Episcopal churches, schools. But I don't really consider myself. I mean, if anything, if I had to declare a denomination, that's what it would be, considering that's what I grew up as. But I don't really consider I kind of am more non-denominational, spiritual type person. But I guess you could say I'm kind of Episcopalian, whatever, if anything. Yeah, so Anglo-Saxon Episcopalian. So then Carter, she does like this thing where she sends the messages to myself and Carter, right? This little group chat thing. And then Carter says, "Oh, can you scan those? They don't have a glare." And Kenny says, "Sure." And then Carter says, "I want to show the kids," because he has 3 kids in California. And then Kenny says, "In a bit." And I said, "Oh wow, how neat. Is that Alan? Was Alan the ring man?" And I said, and I had a typo. Anyway. And I said, "You look amazing, lovely bride." Carter looks like Ben in that photo, because he does a little bit resemble Ben Baldwin in that photo, a little bit. And then Kenny says, "Alan was Ben's best man. Greg was a ring bearer." Greg, my cousin, the one who died back in April. Greg died, my cousin. So, and then I said, "I mean, Ben looks like Carter, sort of. I see. That's neat. Thank you for showing me." And she says, "I'll scan them both and send you both better photos." And then Carter says, "Yeah, I thought the same, Lindsay. You can definitely see the resemblance with Dad there. I think Lindsay has Ben's eyes," is what Kenny says. "Big almond-shaped eyes. Also his olive skin tone." I personally think that I look a lot like more Alan. I don't look like Ben. I look like Alan. I look like Alan. I look like Alan Baldwin, Ben's brother. That's why I'm quite sure he's my father. I don't look like Ben Baldwin. I look like Alan. A lot like Alan. I don't look like Ben. At all. Plus, I know that Alan had A negative blood. I have ORH negative blood. I know that Kenny has O negative blood. And plus, there's no photos of Kenny pregnant with me, ever, nothing. What's going on here? You see, I'm really wondering what is going on. There's obviously something that they don't want me to know. And I firmly believe that Alan Carter Baldwin is my biological father. I am almost 100% sure of it. The way he treated me, the way he looked after me, the way he treated me more like a daughter than Ben ever did, really leads me to believe, deep down in my heart and soul scream and tell me that yes, Alan is your father, Lindsay. You were born out of an adulterous affair that Kenny had, and he's your father. And Kenny's father, Kenneth Griffith, who was a World War II fighter pilot, by the way, he died at age 22. He was only 22 years old when he died. Kenny never knew her father. Same with Gwen. And that explains why my mother is a narcissist and traumatized in a lot of ways, because she didn't have a father figure. She had grandparents who treated her well. Lita Griffith and R.A. Griffith, Kenneth's parents, and she had Mac and R.A. She was treated well by her grandparents, thank God. Mimi, on Mimi's side, the Griffith side, she had Mac and Nanny and Mac. Nanny and Mac McGuire. Nanny and Mac McGuire, Evelyn Louise McGuire. That was her mother. And then she married Kenneth, so she became Evelyn Griffith. And then on her paternal side, it was Lita Bess Griffith and then R.A. Griffith, both of whom lived in Dallas. And they treated Kenny and Gwen quite well. So they did have very good grandparents who loved them very much and treated them well, thank God. Because Kenny did not have a father, and she did not have a very loving mother. Evelyn Griffith, my grandmother, was a fucking severe alcoholic, big time alcoholic. And I saw it growing up, and my mother had to go through that shit because I know my mother was left traumatized and scarred by all that fucked up shit that she went through as a child on behalf of Evelyn's drinking problem. Bad alcoholic. Horrible alcoholic. I've heard horror stories about Evelyn's drinking. Really bad stories about her negligence and abuse towards Kenny and Gwen. And Kenny was bullied around and traumatized by her older sister, Gwen, who was a couple years older. Kenny got bullied around by Gwen. So this all explains to me why Kenny behaves the way she does in a lot of ways, because she had a fucked up childhood. Okay, she had a real fucking weird, bizarre childhood. Like a lot of people during that era. Now, where is a ring? And so, you know what I mean? When alcohol, that's why I have a thing against alcohol. Okay? I'm sorry, but alcoholic parents, in my opinion, have no position really to be having kids. They are not fucking fit to have children. They're not fit to be parents. I ought to fucking know. I had an alcoholic, my alleged Ben Baldwin was a fucked up alcoholic, big time alcoholic. Mimi was an alcoholic. He used to pick me up from school every fucking day, blasted, drunk, fucking drunk off her ass. Oh, now where did it? So I know a thing or two about that kind of environment. I know a lot about that because I grew up around it. Now I don't know what happened to it, but shit. And people are always trying to interrupt me. Every time I'm trying to make a fucking YouTube video about anything, there's always somebody who wants to interfere or interrupt or call me. It's like I'm fucking busy right now. I'm trying to do something kind of important. I can't talk. This is part of my work, is making videos. And now I lost. Where did it go? Where did it go? Okay, I just misplaced something. Oh, so back to gaslighting, back to Kenny's gaslighting though. So today in the mail, look what I get. And she's moving to Mexico on October 1st. Apparently she's moving to San Miguel de Allende permanently, selling her house in Houston or renting it out. But at the same time, she was trying to evict me from here and tell me I had to go live in an apartment and all this shit. So in the mail today, I get this from Kenny. And what's inside the envelope? This is what I get today. More gift. It says, Lindsay, Edie's dress watch for June green ring. I can't read her hand. I can't read all that. But so I get in the mail today from Kenny, my mother, this beautiful green ring. It's really pretty. I guess this belonged to Edie. It's great. It's just a little tiny. It's kind of small. So pretty though. And it needs to be. It's tiny. I can almost fit it on my ring. It's really tight. But it's beautiful. I'm going to have to get it adjusted because I'd love to wear that. Oh my God, it's so pretty. So she sent me that and then this watch. This beautiful watch. Which belonged to my great-grandmother, our great-grandmother, Edie, Lita Bess Griffith. And I showed you before the will of Lita Bess Griffith. where she mentions the trusts for the great grandkids and all that. And also, because I have the will, and also, I'm the one who found her diamond ring in the fern plant. I think that's why Edie liked me a lot as a child, is because one time I went to go visit her in Sulphur Springs, not Sulphur Springs, Garland, wherever the hell they had a house. I think it was Garland, Texas. Not Sulphur Springs, that's where Kenny grew up. But she had a house in Garland, is where she lived before she passed away. In Garland, outside of, like, out east Texas, kind of like on the way to Dallas. And so I went there a long time ago to visit. I was only probably like about, I want to say 8 years old or something. I don't know. I was 7 or 8 years old, I think. And I'll never forget that house. She had a huge sliding glass door in the back, opening up into the backyard. And she had this huge, in the living room, almost taking up the entire living room, dining room area, was this huge fern plant in a big pot on the floor. And huge. I have never seen a fern that large. It was the biggest fern plant I've ever seen in my life. Huge. Taking up the entire dining room, living room area. And so she had lost, at some point, I guess, at some point, she had lost her diamond engagement ring. And she didn't know where it was. She had looked everywhere for it. And I was there as a child. I remember the first time I ever went to go see her. And I guess what was I there for? What was I there for? But anyway, I was just a visit. I was there for some kind of a visit. And I was a child, and I was playing around by that. I was so fascinated with that fern plant as a little girl. I was intrigued by that huge fern plant. I was amazed by it, and I started digging around in there, looking around, playing in the dirt, and I dug up and I found her ring. I pulled up something and it was her diamond ring. I found it in the pot plant of the fern, her ring that she had been looking for. And she was so happy. I remember that I found a ring. So maybe that's why she put me in the will, or maybe that's why I was included as one of the great-grandchildren in her last will and testament. Which I have that thing over there. Yeah, I do. I think that's why I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that's why Lita put me in the will, or that mentioned the great-grandchildren in this will. So this is evidence. And they're right there. This is the original will and testament of like I said. How did I come across this? When I was living with Kenny Baldwin on Ferndale, before I moved to San Antonio, before we had the big fight and she kicked me out, I believe it's because I found this, and since she fucking monitored me, everything in that house with all these hidden cameras, she knew that I found that will, and she was pissed off. And I found it in the closet. I was cleaning out the closet upstairs, or I used to hang out in the closet a lot and had a lot of my stuff in storage in there. And one day I was doing something, reaching for something, and it basically just fell. It fell off one of the shelves and fucking landed on my head. Okay, so that was like a sign from God, I guess, that was supposed to happen, because literally this fucking fell and like hit me on the head. This will in the closet at Kenny's Ferndale house in Houston that I was living in before I got kicked out and put into that fucking situation on 646 Canton Street in San Antonio as punishment, as revenge, maybe? You know what I mean? And I also found out from doing research that Lita died in San Antonio. Lita Bess Griffith, my great grandmother on my maternal side, died in San Antonio. I don't know where she lived, maybe a retirement home, but nonetheless, she died because according to findagrave.com, she died in San Antonio. Weird. See, there's so much I don't know about my own family history. And I know that she had red hair. Apparently, she was a red-headed woman who was very kind of not mean, but real demanding and used to getting her way, an extremely authoritarian and business-like lady. That was Edie on my mom's side, and she was like somebody who was very prominent. So, yeah, she had like red kind of, she had red hair, green eyes, and reddish hair. Not completely red, but like, reddish, definitely auburn reddish hair. So I guess that's, me back in the day. I was born a blonde. I was always a blonde child. Right, born a blonde kid. Really light when I was born as a child. I don't fucking know when I was born. I've never seen photos. But as a child, I had really light blonde hair. And obviously, as I got older, it got darker. But see, this is what I looked like when I was this is the Houston Yacht Club. I was used to go to camp there in the summers to learn how to sail a sunfish. My dad was an avid sailor and really into sailing and boats, and he had a boat there called Dragon Slayer was one of them. He had Banana Split, then there was Dragon Slayer. But anyway, and he was good friends with the Callahans. I remember going to Evangeline and Glenn Callahan's house all the time over there. They lived right off the dock, right out by the bay. They were Ben's really good friends, the Callahans, and so I have a lot of memories about the Houston Yacht Club, sitting at the bar, eating goldfish and drinking Coke. I had a lot of fun there, except then we used to get drunk, and that was when he was married to Marty, and Marty and Ben used to get into these screaming fights on the boat when we'd go off and dock out on the harbor and spend the weekend off. I've got a lot of stories about that stuff. My father was an alcoholic, big time. So that's me, though, as a little girl. Obviously, I don't look like that anymore, not anything like that. But as I got older, as most people who have blonde hair when they're children, obviously it gets darker usually unless you dye it or highlight it. And so throughout my life, as it got darker, darker meaning this is my it started to get this color, like a dark blondish, light brown, ash brown color. I guess, dirty blonde, dishwater blonde. That's my natural color. When I didn't highlight it. After I stopped, if I were not to highlight it as I got older through middle school and whatnot, once I got to age like 14, it started turning like a light brownish, dark blonde, like this color. Exactly this color. So this is my natural color when I don't highlight my blonde hair or dye it. And so but I always, throughout school and middle school and high school, I started highlighting it to stay blonde because I was encouraged to. Everybody was doing it. All the girls, most of the girls in middle school, everybody. It's like I kind of did out of habit. I just kept dyeing or not dyeing. I'd go get it professionally highlighted, visible changes and the Galleria and whatnot. I'd go get it done at the hair salon back in the day. But I don't do that anymore. If I do my hair, whatever fucking hair I have, I do it myself. I dye it or fuck with it myself because I like to play with my hair. But yeah, so I was a natural blonde. And my color's like my natural color is like a. It's even got a little bit of red in there, a little bit of auburnish, whatever, when it's natural. But it's certainly not blonde. It's not ever gonna be like that again. Look, I was like a total. But it was real light. As a child, it was like white, like light blonde all throughout my childhood. And I remember going to Disneyland. Peaches and Pops took me to Disneyland as a little girl out in California, or Disney World, Disneyland. And I remember, I remember going to Mexico as a child, and they would the people would just like touch my hair, like touch the top of my head all the time. And it used to make me so nervous. I'd get so agitated with that kind of attention that I didn't like it. So that's that. I just thought I'd do a video about this for my own keepsake.